Today we're going to be focusing on adding integers. So here are our learning targets that you will be able to represent and explain how a number and its opposite have a sum of 0 and are additive inverses. You'll also be able to interpret sums of rational numbers by describing real-world contexts, and then you'll be able to add rational numbers, also apply properties of operations to calculate with numbers in any form. So let's talk about opposites. So this is a definition, so you might want to put it in a different color. So integers like 3 and -3 are called opposites because they are the same distance from 0, just on opposite sides. So if we look here, you see -3 and a +3. You can see that the distance from here to here is 3, and the distance from here to here is 3. These are called opposites. So other opposites would be like -6 and 6, or -10 and 10. These are opposites. Next, we have additive inverse. So two integers that are opposites are also called additive inverses. Okay, the additive inverse property states that the sum of any number and additive inverses is 0. So you're like, what do you mean, Mrs. Sinclair? Well, that means when I add the opposites together, I'm going to get 0. For example, so if I have 3 plus a -3, that's going to give me 0. Or, like I have 6 plus a -6, put parentheses around it, it looks a little better, equals 0. So if they are opposites and you're adding them together, you'll get 0. So let's look at this adding integers with the same sign. So if you add integers with the same sign, the absolute value of both numbers, you're going to add the absolute value of both numbers, okay? So if the answer is positive if both are positive, and the answer is negative if both are negative. So let's look here. So here, these are both positive. I have a +8 and a +3. Because they're both positive, I'm going to add the absolute values. But basically, I just add 8 plus 3, right? That's easy. Oops. Is 11. Okay? So let's look at the negative ones. So I have -8 plus a -3. Do you see how they're both negative? I have a 8 that's negative and a 3 that's negative. So they're both negative. So the answer is going to be negative if both are negative. So they're both negative and I'm adding them together. That means I'm going to have -11. I basically have 8 negatives and I'm adding 3 more negatives to it, so it's -11. All right, this gets a little bit different with adding integers with different signs. So before we had with the same signs. Now these are different. That means that one's going to be positive and one's going to be negative, okay? So to add integers with different signs, you're going to subtract their absolute values. So like in your head, you're going to go, okay, 10 minus 2 or whatever it is, right? You're going to subtract. So I'm looking here and I have a 9 and I have a 4. So they are different signs. So I take the absolute value of 9, okay, it was 9. And I take the absolute value of 4, which is 4. And I subtract the 2. So I basically do 9 minus 4 in my head, okay? So what is 9 minus 4? Is just 5. Now I need to take the larger value, okay? So I keep the sign that's larger. So do I have more positives or negatives? I have more positives, so my answer is going to be positive. So I don't need to do anything here. In this case, I have more negatives, so my answer is going to be a negative. So let's go ahead and do the same thing. So the absolute value of -9, right, is 9. So, and then the absolute value of 4 is 4. So what is 9 minus, we're going to subtract the 2 again in our head. So what's 9 minus 4? It's 5, right? But I have more negatives. Because I have more negatives, that means my answer is going to be negative. Okay? So let's go on to the next. Now I'm going to show you using chips. It's a manipulative that we can use to help show adding and subtracting with integers. Okay? Okay, so I have 5 positives. The yellows are positives. And then now I'm going to put 4 negatives, which will be red. Okay, so now I have 4 negatives. So now what I do is I look at my positives and my negatives, and these are 0 pairs, so they cancel out. So remember, this is a positive and this is a negative. So positive and negative will cancel each other out. So I'm going to go ahead and circle all my positives and negatives. Okay, so these will cancel out, and I'm left with 1 positive. So my answer would be positive 1. So let's go on to the next problem. We're going to do chips again. So how many negative chips will I need? I would need 6 negative chips, or 6 red chips. And how many here? How many negative chips would I need here? I would need 2 negative or 2 red. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do that. Great. Now I have 6 negative chips plus 2 more negative chips. So how many negative chips do I have altogether? Well, this is actually easier because my signs are the same. So I just add my chips together. So I have 6 here, 6 here, and plus 2. So I have a total of 8 chips. My answer is negative 8 because I have negative 8 because these are all negative chips. Let's go on to the next page. All right, so what does it look like on a number line? So if I start with 6 plus a negative 7, so I'm going to start at 6. And then it says I'm adding a negative 7. When I'm adding a negative 7, I'm going to the left. So this is when I add a negative, this becomes more negative, right? So negatives are going that way, and this would be adding positives, okay? So let's go ahead and look at this. So I'd move negative 7. So I'd move 7 to the left. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So my answer would be negative 1. Let's look at the second problem. So I'm going to start at negative 15, which is between the negative 16 and the negative 14. And I need to add 19. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to do it a little bit different so I don't have to count 19 every time. So I'm going to look from here to here. How many spaces did I add here? Well, I added 15. So how many more spaces do I need to go to get to 19? 4 more. So plus 4. Because 15 plus 4 is 19. Okay? So now, where did I end up? I ended up at positive 4. Now, does my answer make sense? Do I have more negatives or more positives? I have more positives, so my answer is positive. That's true. And the signs are different, so I'm going to subtract in my head, and I get 4. Okay? Let's look at this one. Are there more negatives or positives? There's more negatives, so my answer is negative. Now, since the signs are different, subtract in your head. 7 minus 6 is 1, but there's more negatives, so it's going to be negative 1. And that's it for 3.2.